احكي يا اخي عن
Welcome, dear viewers, to a new episode of Dialogue Horizon. In this episode, we will cover the current events, which primarily on the workshops now, which its meetings convened last week in the Friendship Palace. This is actually it is something prelude to the final agreement or the final ratification of the new transitional government constitution. One of the most important workshops in this area was the workshop on the dismantling committee and removal of empowerment of the OSID regime members. This has very intense discussions conducted by the tripartite and the quadruple, plus experts, very distinguished experts, international experts on such issues. Anyhow, we'll cover this and plus other issues about the transitional governance and about the economy. Few words about the economy and the effect of the economy on the effect of the policy, lack of reaching a consensus or agreement on the economy. So I'm very happy to host in this episode our friend, the distinguished analyst, journalist and analyst, and he is up to date. He's covering almost daily and following the situation. Ustad Makki Al-Maghrabi. Welcome, Ustad Makki Al-Maghrabi with us.
Thank you, and thank you for dear viewers.
Okay, and also we have our friend, known to many people, but this time is in a different, new look. In a new look, Associate Professor Sammani Hanoun. Sammani Hanoun, also known to be very active in the arena of the revolution. Since December 18, he was fully involved in the revolution, and he is following the steps of till this moment. And basically, he's an economist, and he's a professor in different universities, but he's social activist also. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity, and a special greeting to viewers of Dialogue Horizon. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Let us start by the most important issue, which is the convening of the workshops last week of the dismantling committee and the disempowerment or removal of empowerment, which its issues in the past was very controversial, and it did really backfire. It backfired due to lack of something which will be maybe our friend Ustad Makki Al-Maghrabi will tell us about this. Ustad Makki, if you remember the start of the workshop, and it was full with experts who are well experienced in this area, and from the beginning, after the dismantling committee started its work and started executing some of the confiscations and some of the cleansing of the civil service, and some of many people, they were not happy. Not necessarily they are of the old enemies, but they were afraid of backfiring due to the absence of a law and rule of law and things like this. And this was clearly stated by the experts, distinguished expert Greta Werner, when she pointed, she sent very important messages about the dismantling and the previous activities and the consequences of distancing ourselves from the rule of law. So can you elaborate on this, what she meant and what she said? Because she mentioned very important points. Maybe the viewers, they want to know exactly with your explanation what she did really, what did she mean by these messages?
Actually, first of all, let us say that it's a good start. and if the framework agreement is incomplete, as we explained before, but having people in a dialogue and discussion, as I said before, it is better than it was, because with no framework agreement, with no workshop, it was no opportunity to hear just a person, an expert like Greta Ferner from a very well-known institute in combating corruption and bringing money back to governments and to countries. One of the posts or the comments I read it on the Facebook that someone said she dismantled the dismantled committee. So he put her statement in short. Actually, she didn't dismantle the dismantled committee, but the dismantling committee dismantled itself because of its work that is incomplete and sometimes baseless. So that Greta Werner or any one of the experts, when they come, they cannot politicize the issue. And here is the contradiction. Look, one of the things that I stopped and looking at it, the rule of law before, after the military coup of 25th of October, for the record, I see it as the military coup from 25th of October up to 11th of November. But after 11th of November, the area was covered with Burhan Hamadok agreement. But the rule of law after the military coup was better than before, regarding a court that ruled against Burhan himself, against the government. That never happened before. And this is a contradiction. Just last week, the Supreme Court ruled against Burhan regarding the decision of trade unions. Just before months, the Supreme Court ruled against the Minister of Interior, charged him with a fine, daily fine 100,000 if he didn't comply with the decision of the Sudanese courts. So that is a contradiction for me. But we know that Sudan is a country of contradiction. That reminds me of a book, Sudan, a place where Allah loved. That is book wrote by Anthony Mann, who was correspondent of the Daily Telegraph during the British colonization to Sudan. And he came to Sudan to cover the election of 1953. That was the election that brought the parliament.
The first election.
The first election, and then the parliament brought the independence of Sudan. So he came to Sudan to cover the election, and he traveled nationwide, and he covered a lot of election in places, in different places of Sudan, and he came with this idea that he saw contradiction, that people fighting in election, threatening each other, and then they come together and have food together, things like that. And there was parties that calling for extending the colonization, and party calling so that the contradiction that I see, that how the rule of law after a military coup better than the rule of law before military coup during a civilian rule, or this is what they said. During the dismantling committee, or during what they said it was a civilian rule, the dismantling committee made a lot of mistakes. And I blame here, yes, it's okay to appreciate what's said by Greta Ferner and the institute that she is representing. And also, we can appreciate the Friends of Sudan from the Western countries, that they help people to come together. But where are they during the mistake time? They didn't appear at that time. They didn't appear at that time. They appeared negatively. I remember a statement by the Troika itself, when Sudanese court bring people again to their work, that they lost their work just because of politicization of the process of the justice. When the Sudanese court stood with the victims of the dismantling committee, the Troika issued a statement expressing their worries, saying that the members or the elements of the former regime reinstated again in their positions. So I think that statement could not be written by countries. I'm suspicious that the activists that surrounding the people of the Troika and their embassies and the politician, they have access to participate in writing such documents, because I cannot accept that United States, United Kingdom, Norway, to issue a statement mentioning that Sudanese employees should not come back to their work, because some parties, they want them out of jobs. So for me, what is going on now is a good moment to criticize and to correct what is happening in Sudan. And here is the message now. The exclusion of some political powers from the framework agreement is something bad. Imagine this workshop with all people. Why not you bring the victims of the dismantling committee in a conference? After the ousting of Bashir regime, the victims of Bashir regime gathered, and they went to the court, and they raised issues, and they have justice. And as I told you, the police officers that they were dismissed even before the rule of FFC, that I think their decision happened when there was a military council.
Yes.
And then the court ruled against the military council and ruled against the sovereignty council. So it's a good moment for
good start. And you think that the message is sent by
experts generally,
experts,
and also I can remember some lawyers, Nabil Adib and others, even from within FFC, Forces of Freedom and Change, they said the same thing.
The same thing.
Press writers, I can remember. But at that time, the reasonable voices cannot challenge the voices that they are claiming that they are revolutionary.
The stream of the revolution.
And others who are not revolutionary. Actually, it wasn't, it has nothing to do with the revolution. That was dismantling empowerment of a regime and empowering another parties. That what happened, and it was something very bad, very shameful, has nothing to do with justice, has nothing to do with revolution, and this put us in a situation that we are waiting for experts coming outside from Sudan and telling us
what to do.
What to do.
Professor, what is your comment on what he said, and what the main point of Werner, this expert, is that you must abide by the rule of law. Definitely. If you distance yourself from the judicial system of procedures, nobody will respect you, even outside. So what is your comment on this?
My comment is that I will start with this question. Does it dismantling committee is a legal committee or political committee? Actually, based on the previous experience of dismantling committee, most of members, they repeated several times, Al-Faqih and others, they describe it as a political committee, mainly targeting political existence of the collapsed regime, which is completely wrong, and that resulted actually in this very unexpected results of December revolution, because their basic assumption that dismantling committee is a legal body that to address the political body that address the collapsed regime. Our judgment is that the dismantling committee is a legal body that should work within the rule of law and should be subjected to the law. And this actually matches with the principles and pillars of December Revolution. Needless to repeat that the three pillars of December Revolution, freedom, peace, and justice, the dismantling committee should address justice, not injustice. By doing like what happened in the previous committee, actually we are empowering injustice and dictatorship, because simply the dismantling committee exercised judiciary power outside the law, and that actually will damage the whole projects of December Revolution.
Will not be respected.
Yeah, will not be respected by most of revolution makers themselves. We want to realize justice. Accordingly, any activities of December Revolution should be within the rule of law.
That's
This is
exactly
must.
what you was
This is
trying to
actually
say.
what said by the greatest.
Werner.
Yeah. So any power exercised outside the law will be part of dictatorship.
Because
like
you know,
al-Bashir.
because Professor Samani, because the international community, they believe in one thing,
Yeah.
and they are very genuine about it.
Yeah.
They say injustice
Yes.
anywhere
Yes.
is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. This is what
This is
happened.
the slogan.
Yeah.
Anywhere like so
So-
that's why she said, you remember he said, even if we want to take
Yeah.
your case outside,
Yeah. So any power exercised outside the law will be part of dictatorship.
because
like
you know,
al-Bashir.
because Professor Samani, because the international community, they believe in one thing,
Yeah.
and they are very genuine about it.
Yeah.
They say injustice
Yes.
anywhere
Yes.
is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. This is what
This is
happened.
the slogan.
Yeah.
Anywhere like so
So-
that's why she said, you remember he said, even if we want to take
Yeah.
your case outside
Yeah.
to bring your money or the money of the smuggled maybe, or taken illegally outside, you
Yeah.
cannot get it.
Definitely. So again, you are producing new dictator system like before, but in a new framework, in a civil form rather than military. Our basic assumption that this committee should be legal body that work within the state of law and according to the law. And our message to the old member of dismantling committee, you should disappear, not appear again. Because people, they refer the failure of the previous or the weakness of the previous committee due to the assumption that committee is a political committee rather than legal. And this is mentioned in media, and in a different workshop, they repeated that dismantling committee is a political body rather than legal body, which represents a practical departure to the assumption today. Assumption today rely on the dismantling committee is a legal body that work within the state of law. So please don't appear again. That will send negative message to the revolution makers themselves, because you are part of the problem. If you, from the beginning, you start with the assumption that this is a legal body and should work within the rule of law, we cannot end with a military coup. And we realize the justice. To avoid any biasness, to avoid any revenge, you have to exercise only justice. You are judge. You have to act and to protect the interest of all Sudanese people according to the law. This is actually what required by the revolution maker. So we want justice. We are not like the NCB. We are not like National Congress Party. We are not like Linqaz regime. We are not going to implement injustice. We want justice. So for justice, we have to go through the law, and we have to implement the law. This is actually the workshop now retract the dismantling committee in the right direction. And I think this is one of the gains of the agreement. Yeah, this is a big gain to go within the rule of law. Any activity of the December Revolution should be completely ruled and controlled by the law. We have to act according to the law. And now we start, I think, the milestone and in the right direction to have a legal committee that act according to the state of the rule of law.
And all its steps, appeal court and high court, all the steps known and respected by the international community or by anybody.
Yeah.
Once you respect the
Yeah.
rule of law, I think things will go better.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very clear. Okay, now let us, both of you, but let us ask about something related to this. Now the start of the workshops, as I said, it is a prelude to the final ratification of the framework the final agreement for governing the transitional period. But people are afraid because they say that some very important factions of the Sudanese political society of factions are not yet on board. The only those who are on board now in this flight taking us to final agreement for a new transition period is not carrying enough load of those who can cause lead to the failure of the can you elaborate
definitely
is there an effect of the absence of these people?
Yes, please, before I forget, let me mention Professor Mudawi Ibrahim, who was a person that was brave enough to come out in the media and tell people at that time about the problems of the dismantling committee. He is an academician and professor and activist,
yes,
and
yes,
human rights activist. So some voices started from within at that time, but people, they didn't respect the good advice at that time. It was better for them at that time to take this advice. When we come to the framework agreement, as we said before, framework agreement is incomplete agreement. You need to complete it, and you need to recruit people. But the attitude of the main signatories from FFC is that they want to exclude others, and that happened in the issue that we discussed before of Mubarak al-Fadil and others. And now they put us in a dilemma. Yes, it is true that Juba agreements need to be reviewed. That is okay. But the way that they are imposing that, and the way that they are talking that to remove them from power, from their post, so is it a revision for Juba agreement according to a process of revision, or it's something just to move people from power and to bring another people to the power? What is the idea in that? This is the problem here. And also here, again, and I blame democratic countries that they should stand in an equal distance with all. I can remember the Troika when they celebrated that they are signing as witnesses to the Juba agreement that was in June 2021 after the agreement. Mm-hmm. They came late, but they adopted the agreement. So you came and you adopted the agreement, and now out of the blue you want to say that the agreement should be reviewed and to be modified, and you are siding with the three parties of FFC.
Yes.
And you are excluding others. So let the framework agreement to be a real and fair agreement, to be open for more discussion, and then open for others to come to the agreement and to sign the agreement. So regarding this issue, I can remember, let us be more realistic. Why not we have early election as example? Why not you push the situation? We know that the Western countries that they are supporting the framework agreement, they are democratic countries. So how they want to impose a group of political parties against the will of Sudanese people and spoil them and give them blank check to exclude others. This is not this is not fair. This is not agreement. This is bias, and that will lead to nowhere.
Yeah, I think in order to widen the scope of the players in the final agreement, we need to hire and recruit a new member from supporters of the December Revolution. And by the way, we have to differentiate between supporters of December revolutions and supporters of all regime. In December revolution, we are much concerned about these parties and institutions and civil organizations who contributed to the December revolution, they have to join the final agreement because they are part of December revolutions and they played a considerable role during the revolution. So these parties and these civil organizations are strongly encouraged to study the framework agreement and to forward their comments about the agreement, and they are welcome to join the final agreement. Other people who played a very important role during Al-Inqaz regime, I think they have to wait for election. After 2 years, all Sudanese people will go to election. At that time, they will join the political process. For instance, I think that the FFC should target the revolution makers. These now still outside the agreement. They have to hire and recruit these players. They have to initiate a dispute with these parties in order to settle the dispute with these revolution makers. They have to join. Now, some pro-socialist parties who play considerable role during December revolutions are outside the agreement. These blocs are important to join the agreement, and also the democratic bloc headed by the leaders of the Juba agreement are very important to support the transitional period. So these parties are welcome and they have to join the political process at any point in time because these are part of the December revolution makers. So they have to join, except the member of NCB. They should wait until go to the election after 2 years. They can join.
So what are the main what's the main reason for the rejection? The group now who started or who signed or who are leading the framework agreement. What are why they are not accepting to enlarge?
I am worried about ethno-directional congestion. I am worried about that actually.
Ethno.
Yeah, ethno-directional, yeah. That is because if you find the people in the democratic bloc and you go to the FFC, you can easily see some sort of this assumption. I am not sure actually. Like for some reason, the people, they have some sort of ethno-directional congestion. So we have to relax these assumptions and let us sit together. Let us join the process to build the new Sudan together. All people, whether in the African movements or the national patriotic movements in Sudan, they have to unite and sit together in order to join to build the new Sudan.
What do you think? What's the main reason for the rejection?
Let me talk about the solution. The solution is more dialogue to open, and it should be open dialogue, not to go to the homes of the businessmen that we hear their names that they are bringing the FFC with the military component with others, or the homes of
behind closed doors,
the ambassadors.
Ambassadors.
That is a shame for Sudan. Sudan, we are talking now about election in 1953. We are talking about election in 1940 something. The trade unions in Sudan started in 1940s. How you go to ambassadors' homes and houses and to have some lunch or dinner and to bring people, they are already relatives together. And so Sudanese culture is more advanced. Is it a matter of another factor manipulating the political powers, the money, something like that? And also, my message to the democratic countries, the United States, the Western countries, Troika, Canada, Europe, you should help Sudanese people to be more democratic and to connect them with democracy, not to side with non-democratic Arab countries that they are very picky in choosing their political alliance in Sudan. That is not democracy. We didn't get from the democratic countries what we expect. We expect better from the democratic countries rather than they just come and support side and look at people and let them go to the home of ambassadors. And that is now become a big shame. All people in Sudan, they are talking now about what has been said, that this government is directed by
outside.
by ambassadors or outside. That is not good. We need more transparency. And by the way, Sudan, as I said, it's a country of contradiction, but also it's a country of transparency. No secret in Sudan.
No secret, yes.
And Sudanese people now, they know all things. They know all things, and all things now on the table. Make it open dialogue. We want to see on the TV the Democratic Bloc in a debate with FFC that they don't want them to modify the agreement. They said to them, take it or leave it. We want to hear that, not to look at it on Facebook and other.
That's very clear. Okay, let us move. Always, time is always runs very short, very fast. We have another issue very important for both of you. The issue, as everybody knows that the from a strategic point of view and from a regional point of view and neighborhood, the security, the national security of Egypt is also, it should be integrated, and it used to be integrated with the national security of Sudan, because they are sharing major problems together. First of all, like, let us say the Nile and any threat to the water flowing from Ethiopia or flowing from Uganda, from south to Sudan and Egypt, this is a lifeline for both countries, especially Egypt. Also the Red Sea. We have the Red Sea is now becoming one of the dangerous and the most important pathways, waterways in the international community. And there is competition between the big blocs, Russia, America. So the Egyptians, regardless of all this important issue of integration and working together, they seem that they were not involved until it come to the last stage, when they sent the intelligence man, Abbas Kamil, and some people they accepted this, some people it added to the complexity of the situation actually, because now people are more started to polarize around, and you expected agreement or proposal, which did not appear till this moment. The Egyptians did not show or say anything about it. They just invited maybe the Democratic Bloc to come to Cairo.
Yeah.
I don't know why they come to Cairo and they're in agreement with each other. If they call the both of you, this is a very important issue. Yeah. Many people are confused. Yeah. Now let us start by this time by
let us start with the questions why the situation is so complicated like today. Because there is one very important issue, that Egypt should withdraw from Halayib and Shalatin. This is actually created psychological constraint between the two nations. Although they share common history, common geography, common politics, culture, everything, but this problem, again, will represent one of the challenges that face the nation. So in order to, for Egypt to play a greater role in Sudanese discourse, and especially the national discourse, and to protect the national security of both countries, Egypt should address the issue of Halayib and Shalatin seriously. They have to deal with it in order to get access to the whole Sudan. Sudanese people today are very reluctant of the policies of Egypt towards Sudan. And that actually creates some sort of psychological constraints. So they have to make a step forward to solve this file of Halayib and Shalatin. All Sudanese people are very reluctant about the policies of the Egyptian towards Sudan because of still this file is pending. So you need to settle and reconcile this issue. And I think at that time, Sudanese people and leaders will be qualified enough to deal in more positive way. And at that time, we can talk about the national interest and national security, because what's happening now violate this interest. And this is why if you examine during the last few months and years, the continuous visit of the intelligence leaders, Abbas Kamil, to Sudan in order to negotiate, this some sort of congestions in the bilateral relations between the two nations. So I think the gateway, Egypt, in order to start very successful and fruitful policies with the Sudanese nation. Sudanese after December revolution are different from before. Now they are looking forward to build new Sudan. So in that new Sudan, Egypt should also revise their strategies and policies towards the Sudanese nation. The new generations different from the old generations. Yeah. So I think my advice is to our neighbors and our nation in Egypt. They have to deal with this file, very important, in order to build a new relation based with respect with the Sudanese people, relations based on the principle of December Revolution, the freedom, the peace, the justice. These are common values shared by all Sudanese people. So my assumption is that the new generation of December Revolution are totally different from before the December Revolution.
Okay, Ustad Makki Maghrabi, it is very important. I want to hear your about the involvement. First, the refrainment. Egypt refrained completely for the last few months from being involved in Sudan. This gave some people, they say, this gave way to other countries. Usually we all know that most of the changes in Sudan, Egypt was part of it or influenced by it. This time, Egypt came late. Why it was after and why late?
Actually, not just Egypt. All other countries that now they are mediating in the Sudanese issue, they need to rebrand their efforts, because now their efforts has been classified by Sudanese people as intervention. So you can ask someone about Egyptian mediation, and he will answer to you as Egyptian intervention. You might ask someone about the Troika support, and people deal with it as intervention, not just intervention, as colonization. And the same question, by the way, had been directed to a well-known expert, a researcher, Dr. Aman al-Tawil, on a TV show, why Egypt is late and why Egypt is distancing itself for a long time, letting people do their constitution, the bar union constitution, and supported by the Troika and others, not the Troika actually, the quartet of the quadruple. And she said that very important things, and she's a very big figure that in Egypt that witnessed throughout all the regimes of in Egypt. She said that Egypt excluded by Westerners to give a role for other countries. And she said that was a policy from the Western countries to separate Egypt from Sudan and to maintain a big distance between the two countries. And even she mentioned that one day during Mubarak regime in Egypt, the United States forced Egypt not to invest in agriculture in Sudan. She said so. And she is an expert in this issue. So when I come to Egypt, I can see that Egypt is consistent, at least during the transition, because they maintained the same or the equal distance from all parties. And that started from the day one. I always say that if there is a bitterness between political Islam and a country, it should be Egypt. Okay? But look here, the Egyptian, from day one, they maintain the same distance from all political parties, including the Islamists. Why? Because they don't exaggerate the threats. But others, maybe they have some consultants that residing in the rich countries. They are making big threat because they are benefiting out from the consultancy that they are giving to people. Maybe there is another reason. Maybe they have something for tactics, something for strategic. People, they have some analysis. But what has said by Aman al-Tawil and US lead me to another thing. Let us go out from Sudan to Africa. Still we are in Africa. In 2018, Trump administration strike a deal with DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and supporting the election. And they didn't side with the non-realistic position of the European countries and the activists even within the United States, and they sponsored the election, and the election brought the first elected president from the time of colonization, free elected, which is President Flix, and 500 members of the parliament and 700 members in the regional parliaments in the DRC. And that was a pragmatic deal to go to the election and to support the election, whatever activist residing in the United States or in Europe they are saying. What is the conclusion now? DRC now is a stable country. DRC joined East Africa Community, one of the best economic bloc in Africa. DRC now has positive role even in the Libyan crisis. And now the US aid is supporting 2023 election of DRC with $3 million, and they will monitor the election, and now the DRC in the democratic track. If they heard for the idealistic advice of the activists in the United States or in Europe or to the European countries, they will condemn the election, saying that it will bring members of the former regime. Mm-hmm. But what they are doing now is okay. So my message is that now Trump administration, they want to build on achievement that already done in Trump's time, the election of the DRC. They missed the opportunity to make their own democratic achievement in Sudan. Support Sudan to election from the first year of the transitional period.
Yes.
And it was a fake argument saying that if the election happened, it will bring the former regime. That was the 0 point of the popularity of the former regime. And now the former regime and the elements of the NCP became more popular than before if they have the election in the first year after the December Revolution. So the community of the activists, the community of dual nationality or dual citizen people, that they are Westerners and they are Sudanese at the same time, they want to prolong the transitional period. Why? Because crisis, transition, problems, this is the vocabulary that made them rich. This is the vocabulary that gave them value. A professor in a Sudanese university doesn't need a long transitional period to make his achievement. But this is the situation that people in this community, even they are putting the Westerner policymakers just like they came to them just like the blinkers of the blinders of the horse. They cannot see white here and there. They cannot see what is going here. They cannot see what is going there. They just focus on things under the threat of, if you do anything, the people, Sudanese people, will be angry with you. The Sudanese people, they practiced election before. Election is not something new for Sudanese people.
Many times.
So revolution is not something new for Sudanese people. Sudanese people before this regime, they toppled 2 regimes.
Yes.
And they have election.
Yeah. Yes.
So that my message to the United States, to the Troika, to the democratic country, we understand that Arab non-democratic countries, they don't want election in Sudan. Because election in Sudan, democracy in Sudan will change the political equation in their countries. But why you don't want election? Why do you support three parties of FFC that they want to exclude even the armed movement that they signed with them an agreement?
Okay.
I
This is
think,
very
yeah,
valid
it
question.
is very important.
I
yeah.
remember already you say the longer the transitional period,
The greater
more
the risk. Yeah.
the greater the risk.
Again, I just want to repeat one fact that about the weak role and the late role played by Egypt in Sudan. Historically, Egypt plays greater role in the military system rather than civil system. If you flash back the history, the relations with Egypt will be stronger during the military system rather than civil system. I think this is a very important point, a turning point in the history of relation between Egypt and Sudan. Now, as we are moving to the civil state, with a civil-led government, the role of Egypt will be reduced dramatically because historically it plays greater role through military system. During Nimeri, again during al-Bashir, during al-Burhan, they have very close relations. So I think withdrawal of the military forces from political arena is another factor behind the late and very weak role of Egypt in Sudan. Again, my message to our neighbors and our friends in the north, you have to revise your strategy. The Sudan after December revolution is different from before. So you need to develop new tactic in order to deal with the civil society organization, the professionals, the new leaders, and the new generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, always time
Running
moves
fast.
very fast. Now, let us move to a very important issue which concerns many people about the budget. The budget. Now, from this, it seems that Sudan should not expect very soon the resumption of the international aid. Things are still not clear. But now the people are suffering. They can hardly make ends meet, most of the people. And still the government has no other source of getting money other than the pockets of the people by the high taxes and by high prices, everything. So some people, some experts, they say now the value of the pound is almost stable. Some they say that it is stable because of the inflation rate. Importers, the importers, they reduce the size of their imports. That is to say, they reduce the size of their borrowing or their need for foreign money. Maybe that they say this is one of the reasons. But you are an economist.
Yeah.
Let us start by you and then Maghreb comment.
Yes, yes.
What do you say? How will it go? How can the budget work?
The budget that 100% rely on local forces will not stand for longer times. It will collapse within very short course of time due to many factors. As we mentioned in several interviews, that government today, or especially Minister of Finance, 100% rely on taxes. Taxes will increase prices in market and will increase inflation in market. And that's what happened to the exchange rate. The value of the national currency of Sudan dramatically devalue against foreign currencies. So because of taxes, you increase cost of production, you increase inflation in the economy, and the value of national currency will be deteriorated. This is actually what's happening during the last week. Now, again, the currencies start to depreciate against foreign currencies. So taxes, I think this is a damaging tool on the economy. As you know, we are collecting taxes from very poor people, people with very deteriorated purchasing power. This is why the exchange rate remains stable for a long period. Because of per capita of Sudanese people dramatically dropped during the last year. And for package of reasons, the purchasing power of consumers also dramatically dropped. For package of reason, the exchange rate remained stable during the last few months. Now again, they start to depreciate because of inflation. Inflation because of increasing taxes in the economy in order to finance the bill of the budgets, chapter 1, chapter 2, especially the salaries and wages in the economy are increasing. And the pressure group like trade unions and other, the teachers, trade unions and other, still they are demanding to pay the salaries. So this is an endless marathon that finally will lead to recession in the economy. And most of manpower will be fired during the next few months unless we make a political breakthrough and sign the final agreement.
Ustad Makki, okay, what is your comment? We have only 1 minute as went very fast. About the economy, the effect of the political.
1 minute.
Yes.
I'm still supporter for the market economy, the free economy in Sudan. Yes, there are some mistakes done in implementing this policy, but I give this policy still full support, and it was one of the achievements of this revolution that it decided the economic identity of Sudan. And from this point, I'm still see that Africa should maintain the market economy policy and should get away from the debt trap. From China, we should depend on our natural resources and company and the private sector. Number two, from the de-democratization process that is done by Russia and their companies in Sudan. Why did I jump from local to international? I need to explain that in more time.
Okay.
But we need to put Sudan in the right direction of economy. And we should be integrated with the free economy countries.
That is very good. Maybe next time, maybe we come to elaborate on this. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us. Thank you, Associate Professor Sammani Hanoun. Thank you, Ustad Makki al-Maghrabi, for being with me in this hour. Thank you, dear viewers. We hope to see you next week in a different issue of Dialogue Horizon. And bye.